5 years ago, I started my company, Eat and Grow Systems, because I was doing research on the food production system worldwide. Well, first, I was doing research on disruptive trends that were coming. And some of the disruptive trends that I kept reading about, put out by Homeland Security, by different financial groups, spoke of a time coming very soon where world population was going to make using traditional farming methods unsustainable. And that this was going to lead to an explosion in alternative farming technology. This was a time in my life that I was wanting to get into something new, and so I was looking at this, and kept coming across that trend, the fact that farming was going to be one of the next big industries to get into. But the more I researched and the more I looked into the dynamics of the structural reasons why this new trend in farming technology was going to be pushed to the forefront of investment and disruptive technologies were going to come out of it, I started to discover some very underlying realities that were very frightening. That fundamentally, our food production system was very dangerous. And it was very dangerous in the sense of that we've wired the world together through globalization, and we bring in and we require so many things from outside of our own market to sustain our market. And that essentially one major catastrophe, one major disruption to the supply chain at even remote points could cause massive disruptions at other points. Right now, around the world, after many years of great political turmoil, we are experiencing stresses and events that are affecting the supply chain that have simply never happened in our lifetime. The situation that we're dealing with now is something that has never occurred. And so still today, on February 26th, 2020, you can walk outside, you can go to any store, and everything's abundant. Everything's there. Anything that you could want to get. But across the world in China, across the world in South Korea, in parts of Japan now, in parts of Italy, the store shelves have been stripped bare. Because the very nature of the system that operates so efficiently at giving us everything we want balances perfectly on a knife's edge. And that edge is beginning to tip. And I literally do not know how to communicate this in a way that can make my friends and my family really understand just how precarious our situation is. That just because we've experienced the most prosperity in goods and foods in the history of the world, that it is not a given that that will continue, and in fact, that system is falling apart as I speak. The projections that got me into all of this were many, many decades out from having an effect. But then I started to learn more about cycles in nature and the grand solar minimum. And it predicted that because of accelerated climate change, cooling, and climate cooling, that growing seasons would become erratic and growing food within the regular seasons that we were accustomed to would become problematic, which has occurred. There are global food shortages happening worldwide right now. There are locust swarms the size of cities in Africa that have not been seen in hundreds, if not thousands of years, that can devour entire crops in minutes. The projections is that most of Africa's edible crop will be gone over the next 2 to 3 years. The implications of that on the global food system worldwide and populations worldwide is staggering. In China, the shutdown of 30% of the world's manufacturing and over 1 billion people's economy coming to a standstill, we cannot even understand what the economic implications of this will be. But the fact is the supply chain implications in about 2 to 3 weeks from now will be felt acutely here in the U.S. These are real events that are happening. And when I go to the grocery store last night and I buy over $1,000 worth of groceries for my family and friends so that we're fully supplied, I see the same thing I always see, which is people buying just enough groceries for them to take home that night. Stopping off at work and buying some oranges and a 6-pack of beer and a steak. Because that's what people are used to. People are used to there being plenty. The CDC announced yesterday that Americans should prepare for a pandemic and prepare for significant disruptions to their lives. For years, per our analysis of the way that complex systems are structured and operate, I have warned continually that we were one event away from a breakdown in the global supply chain. I do not yet know if we are at that event, but I do know that the number of events is escalating and the severity of the events and how they affect the global supply chain are escalating. And there is only one answer to this problem. There is no amount of preparedness that an individual can do to overcome this situation. Hear me again. The only way to prepare is that we have to start organizing our communities immediately. I will be going to City Council. I will be speaking before City Council and addressing City Council with the facts of what is happening and the reality that communities, families, churches, schools, neighborhoods, city council districts, counties, towns must start organizing their farmers, must start training as many people and offering as much assistance as possible to those people to begin farming, to begin supplying food at locally sourced levels. By all indications, it looks like we are on the verge of an event that has not been felt since World War II or the Civil War. Something that will so radically affect people's standard of living and how they live, it will fundamentally change the very fabric of their lives and reality. And now, in this moment, we will determine whether we will be a free people and whether we will take our destiny into our own hands, or if instead we will totally capitulate our free will, our power of choice, and our power to the systems that will manage this crisis for us and manage us as well. There is only one solution. We must organize. Communities must become self-sufficient. Communities must band together and supply their own power, water, and food. We have to tackle this problem together. And it is through this movement, it is through this direction that we can actually have a positive future.